Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to Shubh Language Academy's Sunday English speaking series. And this time we have a topic that is prime formative years of human life. We are really thankful to our expert for the day, Miss Jenie Joseph. She is AMI Montessori Educator. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for being a part of the event.
Thank you. Good morning. Good
So,
morning to all.
So we all are, looking forward to this wonderful session. Just to let everyone know about our expert, Miss Jenie Joseph, ma'am. So as I mentioned to you, that we are really fortunate to have ma'am with us. Ma'am has worked as the school in charge, that is principal for the rural project by Zoho Technologies, charitable trust at Tenkasi and Kambam, which is in the Theni district, where she was responsible to set primary, elementary, and adolescent sections for rural children. The school's name is Kalyavani Kalvi Mayam. So, and at present, she's continuing as a consultant for the school. Previously, she has been associated with many organizations like Bluebell Montessori Preschool, Thrissur in Kerala. Then she was also connected at Redwood Montessori School, Basant Nagar, where she was actively involved and engaged in setting up the environment from scratch and working with children aged 6 to 12 years. For also, she has been instrumental in setting up elementary environment for Stellar Progressive School in Malappuram. She has a huge experience in this domain. Once again, thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and being a part of this event for the day.
Thank you.
Before I hand over the session to ma'am, I'll just quickly set up the context a little bit for everyone. And of course, as you all understand that I'll be opening the session in the end wherein you can ask your questions, your queries, your comments, your experience if you have something to share. So this topic, prime formative years of human life, is often considered early childhood to adolescence phase that plays a pivotal role in shaping one's personality, values, and cognitive development. During these years, children learn essential life skills, social behaviors, and emotional intelligence through family, education, and through their surroundings. Positive nurturing, exposure to learning, and supportive environments lay the foundation for self-confidence and adaptability. These early experiences deeply influence one's future health, relationships, and professional life. Neglect or adverse experiences during this time can have lasting effects. Hence, a balanced focus on education, emotional well-being, and social interaction is critical during these years. So, with that, it's just a little context, and I'm sure to delve more into it, to get more of clarity on this topic, we'll request our expert, JD ma'am, to kindly move ahead with her session for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jay. And before I start, I want to say thank you to Shubh Language Academy for giving me this opportunity to talk to their students. And happy Navaratri to all. Happy Vijay Dashmi. It's a
Thank you, ma'am.
festive season, it's a festive time, and I appreciate the time and effort everybody has taken to attend this session. So thank you to all, and thank you once again, Jay. Right,
Thank
so I
you.
think some of them had uh, were curious to know what is this topic about. So we are going to talk about um, the formative years in human life, meaning which is that period where actually the construction of human personality happens, and why that should be our prime focus, right? So we're just going to talk about child development in a I'll just glance through the stages a little bit to understand how the child develops, right? Um, um, we can start our slide, Jay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sharing my screen. All right. So, if you could just confirm if it's visible, everyone.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Visible.
I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, clearly.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Right. So the prime formative years. So to understand this, we first uh, take a glance to the overview of the developmental stages of a growing child. Can we move on to the next slide, Jay?
Yes, ma'am.
So this was designed, so this diagram was designed by Dr. Maria Montessori, who was an Italian physician. She brought in the Montessori method that some of you might have heard of. Now we are in a day of a lot of alternative educations coming. People thinking about how to educate the child in a contrary to the traditional way. So you might have heard about Montessori. So Dr. Maria Montessori, being an Italian physician, but she had brought about this Montessori method. She didn't intend to bring a method, but the method came through her observation, through her entire life dedicated to serve children. And so through her observation, she noticed, or she came across, or she designed this developmental stages, this diagram that you're seeing, and she called it the constructive rhythm of life. What a beautiful way to say, right? It's a rhythm of life. It's a natural development of a child, of any human life. And so there is a rhythm. And that rhythm must follow the natural laws of development. So if you look at this image, there is you can see triangles. You can see the first triangle, it says 0 to 6. And you can see the 0, there is a slight flame, right? And that implies that the child, when the child is born, comes with a lot of energy into this world, isn't it? That sound of his cry. And that energy can attract everybody around him. Isn't that amazing? Like, who can resist the cry of a child? Even in a running bus, you see a child crying, everybody's attention is drawn to that child. That's the power of this child. That's the potential with which this child is born, to attract everybody towards him. That's the love that with which this child is born, right? And that is why she indicated it with a flame, that potentiality of the child, that flame, that energy of the child, right? And so you can see that 0 to 6 period, it's marked as infancy, and the next 6 to 12 is childhood, 12 to 18 is adolescence, and 18 to 24 is when we can say the child is kind of starting to mature, or the period of maturity. And in this, you can see that 0 to 6, that's infancy, and 12 to 18, that's adolescence, is marked in red. Yeah, and that is because these two periods are the time when the child goes through great transformation, a period of great transformation, both physical and psychological, right? And so it is very, very important. And the other two phases, you can see 6 to 12 and 18 to 24 is more, it's in blue, which means they're more calmer phases, and more of what was constructed in the previous phases is now being consolidated. They're building upon that. So there is no great transformation, but whatever was built, created in 0 to 6 and the 12 to 18 phases, there is an add-on to it. There's a built upon on it. And that is why it is marked in blue. So today we are going to focus on the 0 to 6 phase, and why that particular phase is so, so very important. Yes. And you can see also the arrow which says finality. That's the line of life, right? So it goes from 0 up to 24 and goes on and on. Yes. And everything that the child creates in each phase is contributing to that line of life. Every time the child constructs something, or every stage where he develops, it is adding on to his personality, to that line of life, towards becoming a matured adult, towards becoming a fully functional, independent individual, right? So we're going to see now what happens in the first phase. So if you look at the first plane, It has two subphases. You can see 0 to 3, there is a subphase, and 3 to 6. And similarly, that's happening in 12 to 18, but not in the other two phases. There's no a subphase as such, but it is there in the 0 to 6 and in 12 to 18. So the 0 to 3 period, that is when a more unconscious absorption happens within the child. Yeah, and 3 to 6, the child is more of a conscious worker. Yes. So what do I mean by unconscious absorption? And what do I mean by a conscious work? It's something which we will come to as we proceed with this presentation. Yes. And then you can also see in the diagram something called causality. So this diagram is actually telling you where it's a comparison of how things happen in the conventional schooling, right? Where the intelligence and the capacity to learn increases with the age, right? So we give very little importance or priority to the younger child, but a lot of emphasis and priority given to a mature child during the times of, what do you say, graduation in the university years, where we say no, they need to be focusing on their education. They need to find a life for them. So our emphasis, even in our conventional schooling, is more as the child grows, the child progresses towards different grades and levels of education. The importance or priority is also emphasized in that way. Yes. And the arrows that is showing is also, it is to represent the different subjects and the number of teachers. So if you see in a kindergarten section, you can see there's one teacher handling all the subjects. And as the child progresses, as the grades increase, you can see different subject teachers coming and different subject periods and all that being introduced, right? So the idea of causality is like the child is an empty vessel and it has to be filled, right? The child is a blank page where something has to be written upon, and that filling and writing is done by the adult and the teacher. That's the idea of conventional schooling, that the child is incapable. The child is a helpless being, and we need to support. We need to provide information. We need to teach the child, and we need to mold this child into a new being. Is an understanding of the conventional schooling. But this is different. That's not the case if you look at the child who's a natural learner, who's a tireless worker. And we're going to see about that. So can we move on to the next slide, Jay? It's a process of adaptation. So what is adaptation? It's a word that we have heard, yeah, in order to adapt, right? When we move to a different country, right, we find it difficult to adapt, right? We take our own time to adapt. And why do we want to adapt? Because that's the need for survival, right? We have to find means to meet our survival needs. Food, where do I get food from? So the first things what we do is to find out places, to locate places where I can get my daily supplies. My fundamental needs should be met, right? The local grocery store. Then we look for transportation to go for work, right? All this is required if we need to adapt to a particular environment. Another most important thing is communication, right? If you are suddenly going and settling in a place like, let's say, France, yeah, and people speak French, and you only know English, how's that going to be? Isn't it? And so then what do? You keep a dictionary with translation, and then you try to learn the language bit by bit, word by word, and then you have your body gestures, different ways to somehow communicate, because there's a need to communicate with your environment if you want to adapt, right? So adaptation, if you look at it, is a mutual exchange between every living being. Yeah, every living being wants to adapt, whether it's humans or even animals, with its environment. So that is that mutual exchange between any living being and its environment. That's adaptation. That's so very important for the survival of the living being. But if you look at human adaptation, that's very different than animals. Yeah, if you see an animal that's let's say a baby deer that's just born, within minutes, isn't it? It starts to get up, run, walk, run, jump, yeah, gallop, because that's important for its survival. If it's just lying there, it might be dangerous for its life. So that's how the deer is being built, to quickly adapt. But look at human adaptation. A baby that is born is not able to walk, not able to talk, right? Completely helpless. So if you look at the stages of a human child, when do we can say a child is independent like the baby deer, right? For us, that level is 12 years. We'll say, no, the child is still dependent on the family, cannot go away on his own. Even at the age of 24, we doubt whether we can let the children go. That's how life is now, right? But humans, their kind of adaptation to the environment is different. And that's what makes humans very special. That's what makes humans very superior to other human beings, to other animals, right? Can we move on to the next slide, Jay? So let's hold on to this thought that how humans are different, how humans adapt differently, and why humans are special, and why they become superior to any other animals, right? So humans, when they adapt, right? So I said this is a mutual exchange with the environment, right? Now humans, when they adapt, they depend on their environment to meet their needs for survival, right? Food, water, air, transportation, clothing. But humans also have the ability to modify their environment, which animals can't, isn't it? That is why when you look at the amazing inventions of human beings, they can survive in the Arctic. They can survive in Antarctica, right? They can survive in the hot desert. How? Because they can modify their environment to meet their needs and adapt to it. It won't be easy, but they can still adapt, right? They can cope with their surroundings. They can work upon the environment to modify it. And that's what makes humans special, different from any other animals, right? Now, coming back to this idea of adaptation, if you look at this baby, the human baby, the child, right? This child is born without movement, without any form of language, isn't it? No idea of what kind of environment he is born, right? He was warm and cozy in that mother's womb. And suddenly he comes out into this world, which is unknown to him. But he has a special task of adaptation, right? If you look at this child, by the time of 2 years, right, he's able to talk in your language, the language of his people. And he didn't join any language academy, right? How is this baby who has no formal training, nobody's tutoring him, is able to learn a sophisticated language. You all are learning language at this moment, and the nuances of language, right? The grammar, the syntax, all that is required to be able to communicate, and nobody's teaching this to the child. By the age of 2, he's able to communicate in communicate in full sentences. He's able to communicate what his needs, right? In proper grammar of his language, and not just grammar and syntax, but also the dialect, the same tone, all the intonations perfectly on spot. How? So can we say this child is not intelligent? Can we say this child is incapable? Right? And if you look at this child, what about his movements? By the age of 1, within 1 year's time, he learns to walk. Right? He learns to run, he can climb. Right? And nobody's teaching that also. He is also able to see the movements of his culture. Right? The Chinese child using the chopsticks. Can we do that? Right? But effortlessly this child can do. An Indian child's way of sweeping, can an American child do? That's movement, that's culture. And this child takes in that as well, effortlessly. Right? We say the child imitates. Yes, that is one way that the child adapts to his environment by keen observation. Right? And nobody tells this to the child. He's capable of this. So at each plane, so we looked at 4 planes, right? At each plane, there's a construction that the child does. The child has a task of constructing himself. At different planes, these tasks are different. For the first plane, what he's constructing is his movements. He's constructing his language of his people, movements of his people. And that's his culture. That is his surroundings. That is what he's constructing. And that is why we say that the child comes with this initial task of adaptation. So this is very, very important, right? What the child constructs within him, that becomes his personality forever. Right? Nobody can erase that from the child, the kind of movements that he has constructed. Language, you can never erase the mother tongue that you have learned, and you learned it when you were a child. So that's then engraved within you. You become a part of it. It cannot be separated from you. That's the kind of adaptation this young child does, the task of this child, right? And he has to do this. No one else can do it for him, right? No one else can do it. He himself had to do it all by himself. But we, as adults, have a small responsibility. We have a role. We need to support this child. And we'll come to that as we go by. So next slide. Movement. Isn't it? So nice to see this baby, every stage. We say milestones, isn't it? Every stage, how this child is constructing his movements. Yeah. And what do? We do with this young child who wants to use his muscles and hands and legs and constantly, right? We can't, there are studies where an athlete was asked to do the baby movements, lie down and keep flapping and moving your hands and legs. And within minutes, the athlete got tired. But the young baby can go on the whole day doing this. And what do? We wrap the baby in the nice swaddling cloth and tie him up tight so that he goes to sleep. isn't it? That's what we do. But this child is trying to construct his mood. He's trying to strengthen his muscles, his bones, because he knows that he has a natural timetable within him. And within that time, he needs to learn to walk. He needs to learn to talk. So he comes with this inner timetable which nobody can stop. Nobody can interfere. He has that inner urge, inner drive that pushes him towards that. Right? And if you look at the child's movements, it is like human evolution, isn't it? From humans who evolved from apes on 4 limbs, slowly trying to get up, and then finally the evolved human becomes is able to stand upright on 2 feet, and then hands become free, isn't it? And that's how even the child grows. His movements is constructed. It is slow, but it is happening, and nobody else does it for the child, right? Can we move on to the next slide? Right? Lots of effort towards, we say coordinating of body and mind, isn't it? And for that, he needs to have movement. He wants to climb. This inner urge, why have you seen this child has started to crawl? It keeps crawling, and what do? We lift it and put it back here. We don't want them to do, right? But that inner urge, you cannot stop. But the child will continue to perform that. Keep doing that diligently, relentlessly. They are tireless workers. They are tireless workers, isn't it? Yeah, next slide. Yeah. These are cultural movements. These movements are also taken in by the child. The child living with his family, with his immediate surroundings, comes to see this. Right? Have you seen these young children play with the kitchen set? Exactly how they see their parents doing it or mother doing it. Right? They are absorbing the movements of their culture. So movements just doesn't mean walking. And, it means all of this. All of this is necessary for the child to adapt to his environment, child to adapt to his surroundings, to his people. That is when he feels, right, the sense of belonging. This is me. This is my environment. This is my people. This is where I belong. You see, you don't get that when you go to a foreign country, right? You don't feel that. You adapt, but you don't feel that sense of belonging. We've seen these doctors telling, when you fall sick and and they say it'd be nice that you go back to your native, breathe the air, isn't it? That feeling one gets, right, the moment you step onto your native land, because that's that initial level of adaptation that the human has made or the adult made when he was a child. It's there within. You might not remember it, might not be in your conscious memory, but it's there. Yes. Moving on to language. Again, if you look at a baby, how he or she constructs language, is again, you can correspond it with the human language evolution, right? Human beings didn't start talking English or, they started making sounds, right? They observed their environment, they observed animals, and they started making sounds. Isn't that how the baby also starts? Babbling sounds. And then sounds become consonants, isn't it? Consonants and vowel sounds from cooning. Then they start uttering small words, from syllables to words. And then words become sentences, right? Isn't it? So this child is trying, he or she is exposed to all the sounds around his environment, right? He listens, he or she hears the dog barking. But this child doesn't bark like a dog, isn't it? The child is attractive to human voice. Have you seen this young baby when you start talking to him or her? They look at your mouth and they start moving. Have you seen their eyes lit up? Isn't it? Because they are taking in the language, the human language. They need that. See, these days we say children coming, we hear many cases where children have speech delays, right? Because they don't hear conversations. There is only one gadget keeping on talking to them. It's one way communication, right? There's no conversation. And families where there are grandparents, you see the child talks a lot, isn't it? So they are constructing their language. They need those opportunities to hear humans speaking, socializing. That is how they absorb, they take in the language of their people, of their community, of their environment. And that is very, very necessary for adaptation. Yeah. So children are very much sensitive or attracted to human voice, to human language. Yeah. That is why you can, when you are in a foreign land, right? And you suddenly hear somewhere, you don't know the person, you hear your mother tongue being spoken, you suddenly turn and you feel this some kind of joy that you get when you hear your mother tongue being spoken in a foreign land, isn't it? That's the identity. So mother tongue, that language with the child constructed at that 0 to 6 period, right? That task of adaptation the child does stays with you. It gives you that sense of belonging, identity. Language is an identity. It gives you an identity, right? And studies say, and as the child progresses, we can keep moving to the next slide. Yeah, reading. Reading is very important. You all will be knowing this because you're learning a language now. That reading equally is important. Listening to conversations. That is why we're having such sessions. That you listen to the language, right? Having conversations, reading. It says 75% of our brain development happens through reading. Yeah, about 14 billion brain cells are being fed when we read. Right? Reading is not just mechanical reading. Mechanical reading is also happening where you're trying to blend in sounds joined together to make words, and a word that is having a meaning, right? Comprehending, understanding what the author is telling to us, right? All that happens in that one activity of reading. And 15 minutes of everyday reading. It says, study says around 1,47,000 words are created or vocabulary is developed per year. Isn't that amazing? Just 15 minutes of reading on a daily basis. How much time do our children spend reading? Right now, with in front of gadgets and all that, they don't take a book and read. Reading of any sort, even it could be on your Kindle or but reading as such. You get information to documentaries and short films. All that is information, but doesn't become reading, right? Yeah. And we always suggest our parents that we need to read aloud to children to create that love for language. So a child should have at least 15 minutes of read aloud and 15 minutes of silent reading at home. And when reading falls into place, you can go to next slide. When reading falls into place, writing will come on its own. If the child is able to understand how to read, and so what is reading? It's able to identify the sounds connected to the symbols, isn't it? Able to decode a word, pronounce it. The writing will automatically fall into place. Montessori called this explosion into writing. It's spontaneous. It happens. You don't have to sit and write, make the child write C-A-T cat, C-A-T cat, C-A-T cat. The moment the child knows cat is active and she associates the sounds with the symbols, she'll be able to write the word. But if that skill is not given, then maybe she'll have to use her rote memory to memorize the word, the spelling, and all that. Right? So we saw movement, we saw language, how the child is constructing. Another thing, next slide, is the emotional and social interactions. That gives the complete picture of life to the child, isn't it? Right? Family is a very powerful unit, a functional family. It allows all-round development for every member of the family, not just the child. This is how the child takes customs in, the traditions. Not just that, the prejudices, the feelings, habits, everything around that family, that immediate environment of the child. Right? So one of my trainers, she mentioned that life is a ground of symbiotic relationships. It's an arena where the child experiences all emotions, isn't it? Anger. The child also takes in when a guest comes, how you quickly clean the house. It's not like every day, sometimes we clean. But when a guest comes, we quickly clean. And then we offer how we invite the guest, how we talk to them, how we offer food to them. And when they leave, those reactions that we have, all this is taken in by the child. Isn't that amazing? And then they do the same thing, right? So what are we? So the child is like a camera. This period, 0 to 3 especially, okay? Why we call it the formative years. The child is like a camera. Takes in everything instantaneously. Like an old-fashioned camera, okay? Not the digital camera where you can do filters and make changes however you want. Not that. The old-fashioned camera where instantaneously you can take a picture. But you cannot see the picture. It has to be processed in the dark. Isn't it? The child processes in the dark. We do not know what the child has taken in. Every detail is taken in. And then one day it would come into light. And that's when we see the photograph. How beautiful it is. Right? And that picture stays forever. It doesn't get damaged. It's there forever. Right? So what should be our role? We can move to the next slide. If we take in everything, the child takes in all the emotions. The child can also sense when father is angry. Father doesn't have to shout sometimes, isn't it? The child can sense when father and mother have had a fight. That atmosphere itself tells the child. Child has that ability to take in, isn't it? So what should be the role of the family? Next slide. Have you seen? I mean, if you're all parents, we have at some point we might have taught our children to ride a bicycle, isn't it? Right? What do? We give them all the necessary support and encouragement, right? Instructions necessary, right? But ultimately, it is this child who has to find his balance. This child has to pedal. You can't make him pedal. You can only give him the support. You can't balance for him. He needs to find that, isn't it? We can only give that necessary mental support and confidence. And the environment, right? A place for him to cycle, isn't it? You need to cycle, you need a long path, right? Then you cycle, and at some point you find that balance. So you can't learn cycling inside the house. You need that kind of environment, isn't it? So that the child finds the balance. That is our role, right? This child who's trying to construct his language of his people. What kind of language are we offering to this child at home? That colloquial language, the good language, the bad language, right? What is the kind of movements? Are we allowing the child to move? Are we participating the child in the movements of the family. When the father is washing his scooter or his car, I give him a small bucket. He's participating in the activities of daily lives. That's movement. That's culture, isn't it? Right? That's the kind of support that an environment. And then what happens? Next slide. Once he has constructed his um, language, his movement, once he has found that balance, you need to let him free, isn't it? Freedom is also important for the child to find his path, right? To explore, right? But for all of that, adult role becomes very important, right? And this is the kind of image you want to give to the child, because he's a camera, right? When he processes it in the dark, and when finally, you know, that photographs comes into your, it's the moment of truth, isn't it? It's moment of reality. You want to have a smiling face, isn't it? Right? And that can only come if we have given him the necessary opportunity, experience, and support for him to develop. So this is why the 0 to 6, we can say that they are the prime formative years of human life. And I would end with that. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was indeed wonderful. You showed us the whole glimpse of how it starts when the child comes into this world. And the beautiful picture in the end where we saw the parent is there with the child, and parent is trying to give a direction to the child, some support, some opportunities. And of course, the child has to find the balance all by himself, herself in this world. So I think that was very interesting. You really put it in an interesting way by giving these examples of camera. I think it really is interesting because a child captures every moment. We are so ignorant of the fact that we are being observed, and what we do is going to be replicated by the child. So I think we do shape and we do impress the child in some or the other way. So thank you for that beautiful and enriching session. I now open the session for everyone. If at all you have any questions for expert or any personal experience you'd like to share, please feel free to do that by raising your hands. So first I see Shubhashish. Shubhashish, over to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful, I won't say lecture or anything, but the way you explained everything, and for while listening to you, I felt that I lost into my childhood, and I'm trying to analyze my childhood, like how my childhood was spent. So one thing, like I already wrote in the message that the when you told about adapting, you see, what I feel is a child has to adapt. It's supposed to adapt what the parents want. For example, if the parent think that a complex is suitable for you, or English medium school is suitable for you, I don't think the parents, mainly for a small child, those are 5 years or at least 7 to 8 years old, the child even though wants to express his or her liking or wish, the parents, they don't pay any heed, and they try to force what they want. So to what extent it is right on the parents part, they think that whatever they think is right for the child, they do that. They don't try to understand the child. That is what I feel. So what is your opinion regarding this? That's my first question. My second question is, what I feel, our education system must be changed, and we should have a much more practical education system that will actually give the childhood, that will actually help the child to enjoy childhood, which doesn't happen in the present education system. Because according to what I learned, is the Japanese till the age of 8 or 9, they don't have any academic subject. They are taught discipline, language, ethics, moral values. All these are taught till the age of 9. So that is why they're so advanced. So don't you think that that kind of education system should be adapted in our country, and like in our society? That is one. And the third one is, as sir knows, that I'm always, like I always love to criticize. So what I feel is, uh, don't you think that the parents, they say, you don't mix with them, they are bad, or they have bad mentality. It is the parents who judge and force the child to mix with the people accordingly. Don't you think they should give certain like freedom, so that the child will mix with other people and they can understand whether they're good or bad? Because yesterday night I was watching a movie of Sanjay Dutt called Baghi. I don't know if you watched it or not, where the child who mixed with a gunda. Basically, Sanjay Dutt played the role of a goon. He mixed with the goon. The parent, the father who was a professor, wants to give good culture, like Achhe Sanskar, good culture to the child. But it is the goon who has given a better culture to the child. So, in this case, the father failed, being a professor, being a teacher, failed to give a good culture to the child, good upbringing to the child that the goon has given. So obviously, goon is it's regarded as a negative character. So my question is, don't you think the parents, instead of like giving the direction to the child, should give freedom so the child can mix and they can judge what is good or bad? Thank you, man.
I didn't get your name.
My my name is Subhashish.
Subhashish. Subhashish, what you're saying is absolutely right. Yes. Um, and parents out of love, okay, we all love our children. Especially when you become a parent for the first time, you want to give the entire world to the child. And we always are very sympathetic, empathetic with parents when parents come. And we know that they love their children. And no parent would want to do harm to their child on purpose. Right? But what happens is the child is misunderstood. Right? Like, uh, did we ever think that this child has immense potential and capacity to learn language or movement or anything around him? Isn't it? So the child is misunderstood. The child is, we say, oh no, don't get out without wearing slippers. You'll get hurt. Don't climb the stairs. You might fall. So this fear that the parents have is out of love, right? And because of that, we tend to become that obstacle in that child's journey of exploration, experiencing the world. So if we can provide a safe environment where the child can explore and experience, that becomes our role, right? That becomes our responsibility, right? Uh, then we are doing justice to the child. We are actually serving children, isn't it? And then about mingling, yes, social experiences. What does the parent want to give? But your question about right and wrong, right? That is when the child moves to the second plane, 6 to 12 years. That is the time when the child keeps asking you why, why. Why in here, in my friend's house, that is possible? Their parents allow, why it is not possible in my house? Why you're not allowing? That is a period of social and moral awakening. They want to know what is fair and unfair, what is right and wrong. They want to know why the social rules. And usually children ask a lot of questions. So the first plane child, the 0 to 6, they want to know the what. What is this? What is this? They want to know the names. What is this? What is this? And they can go on asking you. And what do parents do after a certain point? Shut up. Keep quiet. Keep quiet. This is what we keep telling. The children are there asking you. They want your help. So the 6 to 12 child, they want to know if you go back to your own childhood, the 6 to 12 is the time whenever we got a pen, we would open it and see what is inside. We wanted to know how the spring works. How is this pen working? Everything we'll open and see. Because we wanted to know the why of it, the functioning of it, the social rules. So that is the time where we have to talk to the child. Give them the reasoning. Right? Why is this so? We need to help children. So the first plane, the mantra we say is help the child to do it by himself. Help the child to wear his shoes on his own. Don't wear it for him. Right? But for the second plane, we say help the child to think for himself. You put the food of thought, make him think. Why do you think we should not mingle with our people? Why do you think we are saying that? What is wrong there? What is the right? What is wrong? What is good? What is bad? That plain children, you need to have those conversations. When we only give instructions without reasoning, then it doesn't work out for them. They want to know the why, and they will look at the logical part, and then they'll also compare whether my parents are also doing the same. Why a different rule for me? Why a different rule for my parents? All this is questioned, right? So it's how we have that conversation with our children, how we help them. But for all this, we need to know the right time. We need to understand this growing child with each plane of development that we spoke about. This child is a different child. His needs are different. He adapts in a different way. 12 to 18, when the child is adolescent, you all might have known there is an attraction towards money. I want to earn money on my own. 17-year-old, 16-year-old, right? It's not just about pocket money. Can I go and do part-time job? That's the time, because they're looking for more of economic independence. And that is how they prepare themselves to become a matured adult, right? So I hope I've answered your question, but parents misunderstanding their children and they do not realize they themselves become an obstacle in the child's um, process of developing, process of constructing themselves. And it is because of their love for them. It's so sad to say, that our love is an obstacle for our children. But that's also partly the truth.
Yes, ma'am. Too much of love is actually not good.
Too much of anything is not good.
Yes, and one more, just two things I would like to share. Like when I was to teach one child, he was in class 5. When you like the child starts asking questions, they become inquisitive. This asked me, sir, how does the pilot find out the direction? They don't, like, how do they know which way to go? Because they fly in the sky. So that is what really, an interesting question that I found. He was about 10 or 11 years old that time. And when I was a child, when I was about 9 or 10, I remember I used to open everything. I used to take a screwdriver and open a regulator of a fan and battery and whatever electronic gadget was there. I used to open and try to see like how it worked. And got good scolding for that also. I damaged a lot of things. But yes, I could relate to what you told, that the inquisitiveness inside the child at that age, I also faced it.
So do we nurture that inquisitiveness? At schools, when children ask 10 doubts, the teacher becomes tired. And the teacher becomes
They
tired
become
because,
scold and make them quiet. That is
yeah,
a very
and
wrong
because the
approach, I guess.
teacher has the pressure of a syllabus. Teacher has a time period, right? It is not open to them. So the pressure is on both the sides. And so their easy way is to pacify the children, so to suppress them. That is the easy way, because adults are stronger sections, right? And children are the weaker
Yes,
sections.
ma'am. I agree with you.
Yes, sir. So I will be quiet now because if I stop open my mouth, the others won't get chance. But one thing I would like to say, that is the reason I always try to say that there should be a change in our education system. So that is why I always try. I don't know, like I'm all alone, but like Rancho in 3 Idiots, पूरा system, education system को बदलने चला था. That is very much required. What I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your wonderful explanation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that answer, and thank you, Subhashish, for that question. We have Miss Tanuja. Tanuja, over to you for your question or your comments.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, I would just like to draw the attention to a very unpleasant truth. Uh, you said that nowadays we have, in the formative years, we have only one teacher in the kindergarten taking care of everything. Here, I would like to just tell that Dronacharya taught everything, taught every subject to 100 Kauravas and to the 5 Pandavas, and also his own son. And the thing is, he knew archery just as well as Miss Art, and Kunti did not ask him that why did you teach Arjun archery and not Bhim? So I think this is also a very important point. That's it, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tanuja, for your input. Absolutely, it does make sense. Jayaditya, over to you. You'd like to ask a question, perhaps?
I just need to, good afternoon. I just need to say a point. A comment was written that a child needs to, as per his wishes, they should be give the environment as per the child's wish. So I would say that at such a young age, children do not have the ability to understand the traditions or the norms of the society. So I don't think so. They can take their decision to decide what are best for them for their regarding education or career or other major decisions in life. So that's why uh, guardian is, whether it's their parent or a relative, is needed to teach them, or a teacher is needed to teach them to learn and from the society and other places. Thank you.
True.
So to
Yeah,
answer
ma'am.
your, just to add on to what you were saying, Jay, right? Jay,
Yeah,
Aditya,
Jayaditya.
yeah, is that we don't prepare an environment according to the wishes of the child. That's a misconcept. That is why I'm saying we need to understand the actual developmental needs of the child, not provide things for his impulsiveness. The child is a growing child. Definitely, when the child is walking to fire, we will not let him explore. We will not do that. Right? We will keep him safe. So we need to provide a safe environment so that he can explore. But understanding his developmental needs, that understanding that he needs to move, understand that he is in a period where he's taking in language. So what do we offer? We give him opportunities to move around in a safe place, isn't it? If we set a place where he is safe, right, he can freely move. Nobody has to stop him because we know the environment is safe. It is set up for him that way. If we are offering good language and we don't say foul language, even when we are angry in front of the child, that is an offering. The child will take it. When we take the child to a place of worship, there is a social thing. No, we are different. We do not behave in a social setting like how we behave at home. When we go to a marriage, we take our children. Those are all social experiences, right? Where the child will take in. What the child takes in, we do not know because that's a dark room, isn't it? We don't know what he processes. But giving him these experiences, the social interactions of how humans behave, of how humans socialize is important, right? Because that gives him, he doesn't know the right and wrong. That will come in the later on, right? When he start asking questions around it. And then to be able to sit and explain to him, giving him a proper logical reason around it will help him think, right? So giving those opportunities, those experiences, life experiences is important, is what I would wanted to
I
add on.
totally agree with you. I was just responding to the message which was written in the comment section.
Okay,
So
I didn't
yes, yeah,
get
yeah.
I saw a message where it says the, we use the pronoun it for the child.
Yes,
Yes.
I wrote it.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't see who wrote it, but I did see in between that coming. Yes, in English grammar, it is like that. But because we come from a field where we respect the child, we don't, we either say him or her. We don't want to address it by, address the child by saying it.
When the gender of the child
It's
is
just
not
the way,
known.
it's just the jargon, I
Yeah.
guess. But yeah, right.
Right. Thank you, Jayaditya, for that input, and thank you, ma'am, for beautifully explaining the whole process of dark room. Of course, that is the process where everything goes behind what is in the mind of the child and how it comes out afterwards. Since we are towards the end, I'll just take one last quick point from Mohammed Arsudan. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, sir, my opinion, and you can say it is my comment. So, Uh, Firstly, when we if a student or maybe a child uh, s- like at the time of birth, so the first teacher of our parents. So parents guide us, and children basically and the child basically follow the instruction who gives us parents, like whatever the instruction we are like giving our child, so they are adapting that things. So adapting is a duty of the child. That adaptation is always help him or her for the development, basically, for any kind of development. So that is the process we are following day by day, or maybe our routine work. So that kind of thing we are following from our parents. So first of all, priority is from my hand. Parent Parents is our first like priority, who are giving the instruction for everything, and they are guiding when we are when we are adult. So they are also treated as child, like we are 4 to 5 years old, or maybe 2 3 years old. नहीं तुम अभी बच्चे ही रहोगे हमारे लिए. So that kind of things we are like seeing in our homes.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Ma'am, anything on that, Jenny, ma'am?
No, but yeah, what he said is right. Parents are always the first teachers.
Yeah.
Children take in a lot from the family. So they come to school only by maybe 4 years, sometimes 3 years. But that initial and already the first subphase is over,
Yes,
right? The
ma'am.
conscious
Actually,
absorption is already
yeah,
done.
yeah,
The
ma'am.
child,
After the
the child
birth,
has
first
constructed
stage.
its personality
Yes,
already by then.
yes,
So the parents play a very integral role in every child's life.
yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mohammed Arslan. Thank you, Jenny, ma'am, for that answer. With that, we have come to the end of our today's session. I don't have enough words to thank Jenny, ma'am. Thank you so very much to have taken up that beautiful topic, and the way you have you traveled, you have gotten us traveling from educating children to parenting and how to delve into a conversation with them. And the most interesting part that we all, I'm sure there were a lot many interesting parts, but one of them was the fact that there's a dark room that is there for a child. Everything that he sees around or she sees around, he or she starts to process a lot of things over there. And we hope that there is a bright side to it. There's a light to it, to that dark side, a dark room, which comes out to be a beautiful chapter of this child's story.
So
So,
can I have a small comment before leaving?
yes, please. Yeah, Shubhashish.
So, ma'am, one thing, like more than like we focus more on like the child counseling, the child getting counseled. So, don't you think that parent counseling is more important than a child counseling?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Parent needs to be educated,
yes,
right? Parents need equally, they need children. Children will fall into place. They are amazing beings, right? They are so obliging, right? When we tell them to stand, they'll stand. When we tell them to sit, they'll sit. They're so obedient in that way. But their capacity is much more than that. We need to be educated, right? We need that guidance. That's, I
Absolutely. I
just
think
hope you all take very good selfies with your children.
You-
That you can look back and
That's more
smile at.
important. Yes, taking rather than taking selfies, they have to understand the child and like work for the child. So that is what I feel. Sorry if I'm be like straightforward and I'm be 99% I'm rude. That what and I'm always critical. I always keep on criticizing. Thank you, ma'am.
that's how we bring another perspective of a lot many things. So it's absolutely okay, and we welcome all sorts of comments and
yeah.
positive aspects of it. So
Sir,
no problem at
actually,
all.
I I want to share a thing with Subhashish sir. So, sir, you should try to at least smile every time in your face, because smile is first thing which adapt someone who when you are talking someone, when you are teaching someone. So first thing, the facial expression is must.
That is what
So
I'm learning a lot from Jay sir. To be honest,
yeah,
So
I really love that smile and the way you speak. And honestly speaking, like you have become my idol right now,
Okay.
Jaivardhan sir.
Actually,
I think
sir,
we all are there to support, motivate, and inspire
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
So,
If the Janie ma'am and the Jaivardhan sir, and they are turn off their camera, so how can I can I assure he is interested in me and what I am saying, so I can see their faces कि ये मेरी बात इनको समझ में आ रहा है, तो that kind of thing we can adapt
true.
from the facial expression. So facial expression is very important when we are talking.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Mohammed Arslan and Shubhashish, for that input. I think that also makes a lot of sense to engage ourselves in an active way when we are there with our children and people around. So I think that makes a lot of sense and difference. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session. Once again, thank you so very
Thank you
much,
so much,
Jenny
sir.
ma'am. That was a wonderful session, and we look forward to more such sessions in future.
Sure, sure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, I wish you will again connect with her and you and this
Yes,
kind of session. So
absolutely.
yeah, I will pray again for you both.
Yes, please. You're most welcome for the same.
Oh,
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for your kind participation and your active participation. Wishing you a great day ahead and we're looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny, ma'am. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you so much.